Recording in progress.
Julie Braga. Mayor Connors. Here. Vice Chair Hermanson. Here. Larry Jarnes. Alex Littress. Here. Mayor Medina. Wayne Sword. Here. John Moran. Here. Chair Felton.
Got green lights.
Wait a minute. Is that
Oh, you need,
okay?
I'm sorry, you need white on your box.
White on the
Yeah, on
box.
the box.
I think that it might have said
I got
muted
it.
over here. So okay, all right.
Sorry about that.
Let me just say that again. Okay. Were there any disclosures anyone needed to make before we get started? No. Okay. We have minutes to approve from the July 23rd, 2025 council meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion with one, I noticed one typo, which is page 3, third paragraph. Top
Page 6.
first sentence regarding the Cocoa Beach Air Show, attendance falls below 5,001. I think that was probably intended to say 50,001. Put one more zero in there, since they have attendance in excess of 50,000.
Yep, got it.
Other than
Thank
that,
you.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes with an amendment by Tom Hermanson. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mayor Connors. Let's call the roll on that for the minutes.
Yes, sir. Julie Braga. Mayor Connors.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hermanson.
Yes.
Alex Littress.
Yes.
Wayne Sword.
Yes.
John Moran.
Here.
Chair Felton.
Yes, and we'll show that approved. Thank you very much. We'll go into, Peter, do we want to go into the presentation?
Yes,
for
sir,
NCA?
we can,
Okay.
absolutely. So Brevard Cultural Alliance reached out to us. They are here today to seek a renewal of the contract that they had with us this past year. So that contract is up on September 30th, and they have a presentation to go through. So Catherine is here to come up and go through her presentation.
Hi, thank you all for having me today. I'm Catherine Esrock. I'm the Executive Director at the Brevard Cultural Alliance, and thank you for the great introduction, Peter. And I'll jump right on into our proposal and a little bit of a report on our goals from last year, or I guess this current fiscal year's contract, and how everything is going with that as well. So Brevard Cultural Alliance is the local arts agency for our region. Our job is to ensure the current and ongoing growth of art and culture through our mission to build and sustain a vibrant and dynamic arts and cultural sector integral to Brevard County's quality of life, which looks like a lot of different things, which I'll outline even more through the rest of this presentation. But the arts generate over $123 million in Brevard County every year and employ more than 1,500 individuals. I think realistically that's a way, way low number, but the arts support an awful lot of individuals here in Brevard County. We develop our arts ecosystems, advance arts education, all kinds of things, and make sure that art is there for our citizens, our visitors, and stable for the next generations to come. One of our main ways that we do that is through dynamic placemaking. Our biggest thing that we do for what we would call dynamic placemaking is our Art in Public Places program. And if you're not sure what that is, you can step out in the hallway right after the meeting and see it right there on the walls. We work with member and local artists to Brevard County to take in their artwork. We house it, we store it, we take care of it. And we work with different businesses and organizations around the county to take that artwork, curate it for exhibition, and put it up in their buildings. And we rotate the artwork 2, sometimes 3 times a year, depending on the location. So these locations get beautiful local artwork on their walls. They get it rotated out, so there's something fresh every now and then. Their employees benefit from seeing this nice artwork. Their clients and customers benefit from seeing it as well, and then all of the artwork is available for purchase. We sell the artwork on behalf of the artists, and we pass on 75 to 80% of the sale to the artists. We keep a little bit of a sales fee, and we have a fee with the host organizations. It ends up being about $100 per piece of art for the entire year. So if you have 5 pieces of art, you get it swapped out 2 times a year. That's 10 new pieces of art every year for about $500. It's a pretty great deal, and it gets a lot of exposure and eyeballs on it for our artists. We retain more than 900 artworks in our collection, which is a lot. There are museums that don't have 900 pieces of artwork in their collection, and we work with 26 different locations to display that artwork. So our goal for this past fiscal year for 2024-2025 was to add 3 more new locations to our Art in Public Places program, which was achieved. We now have artwork in Commissioner Altman's office, and Representative Miller's office, and at Glacier Blue Acupuncture, which is a local acupuncture business. We're also right now in progress with working something out with the Emergency Operations Center for the county and a healthcare company called Rocket Healthcare. So those are in the works as well. So achieved for the 2024-2025 fiscal year. And then for this upcoming fiscal year for the new contract, we would like to add at least another 3 new locations to that list as well. Another thing that we did with Art in Public Places this year is we did a full inventory of all of our artwork, which I don't think has ever been done in the 50 years of Brevard Cultural Alliance. We couldn't find any paperwork on it from the past, and it took us over a week to go through all of it and make sure everything was where we thought it was, and it is. Everything's accounted for, but that was a big project this year. And you can see a couple of examples of some of our artwork. This was at the Space Coast Office of Tourism, I believe, towards the beginning of this year. I think it's been swapped since then, but those are some pieces that have been on display for an example there. Our next big overarching thing that we do is inspiring next generations. We do this mostly through our school programs. We work with the Brevard Public Schools and the Brevard Schools Foundation to put on a couple of different types of programs for inspiring our youth to look towards the arts as a career and kind of help fight the idea and the stereotype of the starving artist. You can be an artist and you can live well also. Our big programs with the schools are our Next Generation Artist Residencies, where local professional artists do different drop-ins throughout the school year in classrooms. They work with the kids to develop an art project, and they perform it or display it at the end of the year for their family and friends. It shows them the full creative process from start to finish and puts an adult that is succeeding and thriving in an art career in their classrooms so they can see that as well. Another program that we have are arts clubs. Those are in middle schools as an after-school art program. If a teacher is willing to spend a little bit of their extra time after school, we are willing to help provide some supplies and some lessons and a little bit of pay for them to stay around after school, keep the kids interested in art and out of trouble, and have some nice additional outlet to put into that. So that's in 6 different middle schools across the county at the moment. Our other big program is teacher professional development, and you can see a couple of pictures here from professional development workshops that we did this past year, where we had some professional teachers of teachers that came in and taught workshops to a group of over 50 teachers who were able to take these lessons back to their classrooms, and some of the clinicians were able to go into the schools and also do workshops and clinics with the students. For the 2024-2025 school year, we did 2 full-day professional development workshops for teachers with classroom visits, like I said, from those professional development folks, which impacted 2,000 students directly and another 9,000 plus indirectly impacted by that professional development. So our goal for 2024-2025 was to raise at least $25,000 to help support our educational programming. Typically, we're pretty reliant on the state cultural grants, and as you know, this past fiscal year, those were not done at all. That funding got absorbed into something else, and so we made up that gap in that funding we typically have through a private foundation. And then for the 2025-2026 school year, our goal is to provide professional development at 8 to 10 Brevard public schools, again, to enhance teacher curriculum and teachers' instructional skills to improve student outcomes. Our next main category of impact is connecting the dots, so making connections between different art and cultural organizations, government organizations, government service members, and individuals from the public, tourists, all that, to make sure that everybody is as connected as possible so they can find these arts resources that they may be looking for. We have directories on our website that feature artists, venues, events, organizations, all kinds of things. I make an awful lot of connections through emails and in meetings and personally to get the right people, the right resources that they need. And we are working on seeking out always new benefits and things for our members so that they have the resources and supplies that are available to them that they may need. Here is a little screenshot of our BCA web calendar. We have thousands and thousands of events on this web calendar at all times. We try to publish and share things on our social media as often as we can. And anytime someone's looking for something to do, I point them directly to our calendar. There is something for everybody. For 2024-2025, our goal was to reorganize our membership program. It definitely needed a reorganization and some new diverse benefits, and we're in the final process for approving that. Our current membership structure is written into our bylaws, oddly enough, so we have to change our bylaws in order to change the membership structure. So we're in the final phases of that, and we have included we've split out our artist membership option. It was originally just an individual artist membership, and now we have an option for emerging artists versus established artists with different benefits for those two groups of folks. And we didn't have any option for people who just wanted to support the arts in some way, shape, or form. So we've worked on 3 new membership levels for arts enthusiasts, arts advocates, and a patron circle with behind-the-scenes exclusive benefits and all kinds of fun, extra things that you get to do. So our goal for the 2025-2026 fiscal year will be to fully implement that new membership structure and increase our overall membership by, it sure does cut off on that slide, but by 5%. That's our goal there. Our next category is engaging forward. So this is beyond just connecting folks and resources and art back and forth to each other, reaching out to the community and reaching out to these arts organizations to try and make new fantastic things happen. So for 2024-2025, all of that in that blue square, those were our goals. All have been achieved or exceeded. Our goals were to deliver at least 10 speaking engagements on cultural arts, which included speaking engagements with Leadership Brevard sessions, the opening of the Space Coast Creative Center, several local Rotary clubs, Willie Mae's Art Blast, which is a radio show, and many, many more. So those were fun and interesting, all checked off the list there. The next goal was to gain a board seat on one additional board for myself, and as of the writing of this report, that was still waiting on the response. I got the call the next morning that I've been voted on to the Greater Palm Bay Chamber of Commerce board. So number 3, check and done. The other 2 are an EDC reporting board and the Space Coast Science Center, where I am the secretary, and you'll definitely be hearing more about that pretty soon, I think. So that has been achieved. The next goal was to produce at least 10 episodes of True Colors on the Space Coast, which is our podcast that features new emerging artists. that are local to Brevard County. As of right now, we have done 7 episodes, and we have 3 more scheduled, 1 for August and 2 for September. So those will be upcoming. So far, out of those 7 episodes, we've gotten 6,300 views, and we're expecting another 2,000 to 3,000 probably to come from these last 3 episodes. Our next goal was to provide 4 workshops or info sessions on grants for cultural organizations and artists. We actually have done 7. We started doing a monthly Zoom office hours call, and those have gone very, very well. It's a little different every time. It's truly just an open forum for people to ask questions or bounce ideas off of each other. They can ask questions of me and our current finance chair for the board of BCA, who is a professional grant writer. We've had folks who are volunteering who have never written a grant before and are interested in it. They have no idea where to start, and we can give them a quick run through of tips and tricks and what to look for. And we've even had professional grant writers or people who are grant writers for their organizations come and share their wisdom and their information and knowledge and ask some questions, workshops, some things that they're putting into grants, all kinds of stuff. So they've been quite successful, and we've had 13 total attendees so far, and we plan to continue to have them every single month. It's been great so far. Our next goal was to table at 4 public or tourism events to promote the arts and member organizations. So we've tabled this year at St. Catherine's Creek Festival, and we also provided art making activities for kids and some adults. That was fantastic. That's the 2nd year we've done it, and I think it will be an annual partnership. It's gone very, very well. We also tabled at Eastern Florida State College Volunteer Fair Days and a Space Swap Earth Day event where they were swapping clothing to reduce clothing waste. So that is all done there. And then our final goal was to, we were also helping Satellite Beach source local artwork to add to some vinyl wraps around utility boxes. That has been done, so keep your eyes peeled. And Satellite Beach, if you see a beautiful electric box, that's some local artwork. And then our final goal was to work with the county commissioners to assist in different art and culture projects in their districts. I've met with each of the commissioners individually at least once to discuss their priorities in their districts, and Commissioner Feltner and I have worked on a couple of initiatives together, including maybe some ideas for a mural somewhere in the government center to liven it up a bit too. So all of those for this past fiscal year have been achieved, and our goals for the 2025-2026 fiscal year are very similar, but we're increasing some of those numbers and adding a couple of extra events at the end there. So again, another 10 speaking engagements on cultural arts, produce another 10 episodes of True Colors on the Space Coast, provide 12 workshops or info sessions on grants for cultural organizations. That monthly Zoom workshop has been fantastic, and we may even expand from there. But I think 12 is, we can at least do 1 a month with those Zoom workshops. Table at 5 public or tourism events. I'd love to see that be even more than 5, but I'd like to do at least 1 more. And then everything, that next point is additional, so host 12 art in public places open house events. That's something new that we've started doing this year. We have had, what was my number? I think we've had 3 of those so far. 3. We've had 3 of them so far, and it has been fantastic. We've had a total of 38 attendees with great feedback. All we're doing there is opening our doors to the public after hours from 5 to 6:30, the 2nd Thursday of every month after our Art in Public Places Approval Committee meets. They approve all of the new artwork that's been brought in for that program over the course of the last month. So it's fresh new artwork to BCA and to the program. We display it on our walls, and we invite the artists, their families, friends, members of the public, whoever would like to come by, to come and see our brand new artwork. And people have been coming at the very beginning. They stay the entire time, and we've seen some interesting new projects and partnerships that have come out of those events. So our goal is to have 1 of those every month next year, over the next year. We would like to continue to work with the county commissioners to assist in more art projects for their districts as they see fit. And then the next 3 are new or additional events that we have plans for. So we are planning to host a studio crawl. We're calling it the Culture Crawl. That'll be October 11th. We've got 14 studios that are interested in participating, where they've just agreed to be open at the same time on the same day. We're producing a map and a bunch of marketing for this event and putting that out there to have people go to as many as they possibly can. We've got locations ranging from Titusville all the way to Barefoot Bay, so right at the very, very end of the county. We've got folks everywhere that are participating in this, and we're hoping that it goes swimmingly and we see a great attendance, and if it goes well, we'd like to have another one in the spring, maybe around spring break time, to capitalize on extra visitation and push more folks into those studios. Then our next new event that we're working on is an art resources fair that we plan to host in spring of 2026 for artists and cultural organizations to table with information about their events, offerings, all the things that they have going on. So if anybody visiting or local wants information about art and culture in Brevard County, that's the place to go, is go to a whole big convention and pick up all the information you've ever wanted to know about painting, photography, dancing, you name it. If it's here, we would love to have it at this event. And then the final thing is to host our biennial cultural summit for fall 2026, which provides professional development and networking opportunities for Brevard County artists and organizations. So we do that every other year. This is an off year, and we have big plans for this next upcoming year. So to make all of these programs, initiatives, and partnerships possible, BCA is requesting $217,000 for the 2025-2026 fiscal year, along with our own revenue streams and support from other organizations, individual citizens, and this investment from Brevard County and the Tourism Development Council. We can achieve these goals and more. The arts enlighten our lives with beauty, emotion, and understanding. They cultivate a sense of identity and belonging, foster creativity and innovation, and promote social interaction, all things necessary to a vibrant region, attracting investment from visitors, residents, and industry. And together, we shine brighter with Brevard Cultural Alliance as a beacon to ensure continued arts and cultural vibrancy in Brevard County. Thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions that you all
Questions
may
for
have,
Catherine?
or comments.
Can you remind us, what's your total expense and revenue budget for this fiscal, and then what are you projecting for next?
I actually have some copies of our budget, if you guys would like that, if you would like a paper to look at. I brought those with me.
Sure.
Sure. We do not have a final proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Our annual meeting to approve that is in
Thanks.
September, but it should look pretty similar to this. I don't think the numbers will change too much. Thank you. I'll run through that with you all in a second.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the event on October 11th, how are you communicating to visitors and tourists about the event?
We are communicating with visitors and tourists through social media campaigns, and we just finalized our number of studios that are in on this. So we're making a big handout with a map and all of the details and information. We'll be distributing those to those studios and asking them to hand out the information to anybody who's coming in. We would love to bring it by any hotels that would be happy to have it to hand out to their guests. Anywhere and everywhere that we can get these flyers handed out to is perfect. So between that and our social media pages, we've had a couple offers for radio shout outs that we could do as well. So any ideas or any other revenues, or not revenues, paths that we could go down, avenues, there we go, couldn't come up with the word, any other avenues that we could go down to advertise it, we're open to that as well.
Well, I think it sounds neat, and we'd love the information.
Excellent. I will add you to our list for
Thank
sure.
you.
So for the question of what does our budget typically look like here, so these are our actuals and then our total budget for this fiscal year that we're in, which ends for us at the end of September, and these numbers for the actuals are through July. That's what's been most recently reviewed by our board. So overall, for our income, This year, we were budgeting and projecting for $360,725, and so far, we're at $343,093. So we're under by about $17,000, which, again, these are from July, so that will be surely made up by then. And then for total expenses, we are projecting $398,737. And then so far, as of July, have spent $332,732. So about $66,000 under that expected expenditure as of July. So again, we should be about on track with these things by the end of September.
Other questions for Catherine?
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Connors?
what events, promotional activities, schools you've been at, in terms of the events that you broke down, which ones of them took place north of 528?
Out of the events that we host or out of the events that we have attended?
Well, whatever. I mean, you talked about going into schools, so I'm assuming that's an event that you guys are hosting or attending.
That is an ongoing program that happens pretty consistently in schools, and those, the middle school art clubs, those are spread out all across the county. There are at least 2 that are in Titusville or Cocoa that are up north. They're typically Title I schools that get to participate in this. And then the professional development workshops, I believe, were both in Satellite Beach, just because it's central, with the goal that hopefully it's easier for everybody to get there. And that's the school that we were able to work it out with to host there.
Okay, thank you.
By the way, I think we each need to turn our mic on and off with the, just because you see the green light doesn't necessarily mean it's on. The mic button over here, okay?
White lights is on.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's not on.
Yeah,
Like, my white lights are on, but
Okay.
the mic is not on.
okay, all right. Other questions for Catherine? No, now, do you get tables at the art shows? So when, like, the ones that are in Wickham Park and,
Well, I have
Downtown
been here
Melbourne or any of those kinds of things?
So far, we have not, but that's in my plans for this year, is to have tables at all of those events.
I would think that's the place where you'll find artists, right?
Yes, big time,
Okay.
big time.
Okay, any other questions for Catherine? And then Peter, anything else we need to do on this? You have an action item on there, right?
Yes, sir, we do need a vote to make the recommendation on the $217,000, and then that'll go to the board for final approval.
Okay, discussion on that first. Is there any discussion on the money that they're requesting, sir?
I think, based on that presentation and its detail, it's easy to see that the BCA does a tremendous amount of work with a very limited budget. I think cultural outreach, especially in the education and the schools, is probably the highest and best values, obviously, as well as sharing art installations around the county. So for a relatively modest sum of $217,000, I think the county is getting a good value, and I will make a motion to approve the request as presented.
Okay, real quick, any other discussion on that before we vote? Okay, have a motion by Tom Hermanson to approve the $217,000 request. Is there a second?
Braga will
was-
second.
Second by Julie Braga. We'll call the roll.
Julie Braga,
Aye.
Mayor Connors,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hermanson,
Yes?
Alex Littrus,
Yes.
Wayne Sword,
Yes.
John Moran,
Yes.
and Chair Phillips.
Yes. Congratulations. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, Peter.
Very good, thank you. We're going to move into a couple of different presentations that I have, but just quickly before we get into that, wanted to mention, I'm going out on a limb, and I'm going to say from a tourist development tax collection perspective, we're going to have our best summer ever. Our previous summers, our last 3 summers, were all about 6.14, 6.15, and 6.17 million, and we're going to break through, looks like 6.2 million for this summer. So, good news from that perspective. Obviously, we don't have actuals in for July or August yet, but just looking ahead at STR reports and various other reports that we use to do projections, looks very, very strong. So we'll come back, obviously in about a month and a half, and give a final numbers, but that's kind of what we're looking like for the summer, so feeling good about that. Okay, so we're going to move into a couple of different presentations. The first one is the budget. It's the smaller packet in front of you, and then I'll also put it up on the screen. So I'm gonna try to go through quickly, but obviously stop me if there are questions. The first slide is just kind of what these are numbers from past years, and I always like to show this on the slide because it shows the growth. But if you go back to 16, 17, we were in that $13 million range, and then we've kind of jumped up in 2019 and 2018, 2019, and cracked through the 16 million. Then, of course, in 20, we all know what happened with COVID, kind of a dip back down there. But since that time, pretty much since 21, we've been on a pretty nice trajectory. The last 2 years, breaking through the 25 million, we were 25.5 million in 23 and 25.25 million in 24. We're projecting right now 26 million. We believe we'll break that. We'll see if we can break through that number. That'd be pretty exciting if we could. But it looks that way. So we're pretty pleased with that. And then next year's budget, revenue budget is 27 million. So again, continuing to kind of stretch that number, and we'll see how we do there with, a lot of new hotel properties in the market that certainly could assist us. Vacation rentals continue to be about 1/3 of the collection, and hotels are about 2/3. So the new hotel room inventory is going to probably be the major factor to help us with that. And then before I get into each one of these funds, just as a reminder, a lot of our funding is dictated by state statute and by county ordinance. In other words, the state statute kind of tells us what we can spend our money on, and then the county ordinance sort of tells us how to bucket those funds. So it gives us a specific to percentages of the revenue that have to go to each of these funds. And then, we're authorized by the state statute to collect administration costs. So those are costs for my staff and various other operational costs that we have. And we pull that from each of the different funds that we have. So you can see here, this is the revenue. It's coming from those different, 1441 through 1448 basically are the buckets that get tax allocated to it. And we pull a little bit from each of those, and of course then we also have some carry forward and interest, and so that comes up to just short of 2.3 million. And then if you look at the next slide on page 3 in your presentation, this is how it's spent. So compensation and benefits, be able to hold them pretty strong. I mean, we're at 1.65 million last year. We're moving up to 1.7. Some of that's dictated by the county. We've got expenses related to benefits, FRS, things like that we have to build into there, but tried to hold those pretty steady this year. But then some of our operating expenses go up. Our rent goes up. It's on an escalator, things like that. And then of course, then we are allocated from the county finance. We're allocated a piece of the county's expenses, and so that we don't have any control over that. So that's how we get to the 2.3 million. So that's our administration budget. And then now we'll just move into some of our each of those different funds that actually get bucketed TDT. So the first one is beach improvement. Allocation, 6.75 million. We have some interest in there. We also have balance forward. A big part of that balance forward were funds that were owed to us from FEMA that came in this past year. We're still waiting for some funds. We're not fully there yet as far as collection of all the funds that are due us, but we got a pretty big tranche of that this year, which is good. So 36 million. And then on the expense side, you can see how it breaks down. We've got various beach projects that we have to fund. Right now, we're putting 13 million into those. Not all of that will get spent next fiscal year. Some of that will be some of it is sort of post expenses that we have for projects that we did previously, and then some of it is just holding for projects that we're going to have in the next couple of years. And then the South Beaches project at 11.586 million, that is going to happen next year. That's a big project that's going on, and we need to do that work. That's something that we try to do every 3 or 4 years, and we have a lot of issues down in the South Beaches with them being more narrow beaches. So we're trying to get those projects, get that project done before any major storms hit us. And then we have various other items that we have expenses for. The IRL grant program was not in effect last year. So we didn't have any grants to fund this year, but there was an award to the derelict vessel program and Keep Brevard Beautiful, which was sort of designated as an IRL grant program. So those two things come out of that budget. That's 247. We also pay for the natural resources beach administration budget. That's Mike and his team and all the work that he does. That's 4.6, a little under 417. Of course, Lori Wilson Park has been designated a park that is under the tourism office, and so we pay for the maintenance of that. That's 253, a slight escalator there. And then reserves, we bumped our reserves up to 10 million from 8.85. Again, using some of those funds from FEMA that we got, we were able to put a little bit more into those reserves. So just as a reminder, when we did have that year with bad storms, we burned through about $18 million of our budget pretty quickly. So, not to minimize the amount of money that's in that budget, but just to point out that it only takes one bad year to kind of hurt us. So we feel good about going into next year, but always cautious when we're still in the middle of hurricane season. So that's how we got to the 36. Moving on to capital facilities. So that's on the next page. Capital facilities is 35% of the first 2 cents. Just under 3.8 million is our projection for revenue. A little bit of earned interest in there. Our balance forward is beginning, slowly going down because we're spending, those projects that have been previously awarded and previously designated have been spent down. So, getting under 10 million now in carry forward. We'll have, by next year, we should have a couple of other of those projects finished up. So that number will be even lower as we go into the following year. And then you see on the expense side, what's available for capital projects. It's still a pretty small amount, probably not really going to reach a good enough number to have a grant program. Obviously, we'll talk about that as we get into our next cycle, probably in January. But 247, the capital projects that are projects either in process or projects that have not yet begun but are designated or holding funds for example, Brightline Station was awarded $5 million. That's part of that 9.38. So, that right there would obviously, once that project moves forward, they're waiting to hear some things about that. But once that project moves forward, then they're able to access those funds on a reimbursement basis. And then some debt service, capital reserves, et cetera, make up the remaining $12.3 million. Okay, VIC, so this is not only operations of our Visitor Information Center, but also this pays for really anything that touches the visitor, our website, our app. We have electronic kiosk located at the Visitor Center, our vacation guides, participation in Visit Florida's vacation guide. All of those things are all part of this program. TDT allocation, it's only 10% of the third cent, so it's $540,000. We have a little bit of balance forward for 524, and then you can see we have 1.5 FTEs there, full-time person, and then a part-time that does the weekends. So we're open 7 days a week, and then the operating expenses there, and then also the we also have a grant program for the 4 chambers of commerce in the county that operate their own visitor centers. That $100,000 gets divvied up 4 ways, so $25,000 each to help them in their operations and their program to do outreach to visitors. So this is really truly a visitor-centric budget, if you will. But that's 524. Next is cultural. So we just talked a little bit about one piece of the cultural, which is the BCA contract. We'll have to make some adjustments based on where the board finally approves, but we have a little over $1 million, 1.08 in revenue. It's 10% of the first 2 pennies. Then we do have some balance forward that's coming forward for this year. So nets out about 792. We have, you see the BCA, that was 202. That's what they had this past year. So we'll have to bump that up to 217 if the board so chooses to do that. And then the MSP grant program, that's the new marketing support program grant. Those were just awarded by the board last month. So all of that was pretty much spent, with maybe some exceptions. We have to wait and see. There's still some district awards that the county commission districts are able to award of $100,000 that we haven't seen yet what's going to get awarded. So we'll have to take a look at that and see what is finally used. That's going to come to the board in October, and then. Other than that, some opportunistic funds there, $58,000. It says / lifeguards. There was $250,000, and I'll show you where it is in a minute. That was in this budget. That's being transferred for lifeguards. It's going into the marketing budget out of this budget. So that pretty much, there's a little bit of opportunity funds, but not a lot in there anymore. So that is a budget that's been spent down pretty significantly over the last couple of years. The zoo, it's a straight up 25% of the third penny. So this is a pass through. This goes to the finance department, and the finance department cuts them a check every month. So that's straight through to them. 1.18 million that they will get next year. They use that typically for capital projects. Then we have the stadium maintenance fund. Usually by ordinance, we're supposed to keep about 300 and I think it's 340 that the ordinance says. That this is 351. So we just keep a little bit extra in there, but it's right around the 340, 350 mark every year that we use for various projects and maintenance that they do that is supporting capital expenses. So it can't just be any kind of expense that they get reimbursement on. It has to be something that's specific to supporting the capital elements of the stadium. So work on the fields, work on the building, work on the roof, things like that. And then the capital fund, we no longer, as the TDC, as part of the contract, have to put in $250,000. The first 5 years we put in $250, but they have to put in $250 for 10 years. So that gets added to the fund this year, and that right now we've got about 2.7 in there for any renovations and enhancements, and I can tell you the projects that they're looking at are going to far exceed that. So that's something at some point will have to come before probably the board to determine how to fund projects that they want funded. But that's the situation with that fund. And then marketing, of course, we're going to go into pretty detailed review in a minute, but this is just the marketing fund. We get marketing from different sources, so it's 25% of the first 2 pennies, 100% of the 5th penny, and then after we use the funds that I talked about for the stadium that were required by contract, the rest of that gets swept here. So after the $350, that remaining amount gets swept here. So that adds up to about $12 million, and then we have a balance forward of about 1.2. And then you can see some of the other expenses they've taken out. The net is going to be $13 million and some change. Also, then as I mentioned, there were 2 places where money for lifeguards is being transferred in, and then ultimately will get paid out. It's $250,000 from cultural, and then the remaining amount comes from the capital fund. It's about $800-something thousand for capital. So that total budget is 14.4, but realistically, it's a net of about 13 million. And then how that's going to get spent on the next slide is 12 million for promotional and marketing, media relations, software that we have to buy to run some of our advertising campaigns, sports marketing, of which 240,000 of that sports marketing number is part of the MSP program that I mentioned earlier. So $500,000 from cultural and 240 comes from the sports program. And of course, that provides $15 a room night in incentives for sports programming. So that's important to have to try to drive that line item. And then obviously, there's some other expenses in there to match up with that 13 million. This is another way to look at it by district. So this goes back a couple of years where District 2, which includes Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, and the Port, get 50% of the marketing, and then the other 4 districts get the remaining 50% gets split between them. So that's what that looks like. That's netted down to 11.8 because we're holding back 700,000 based on the reduction and carry forward. We only have 1.2 million. We had originally thought we were going to have 1.9, but since we're not hitting our original revenue for this fiscal year of 27 million, it's going to be 26 million. I had to hold some money back here for that, just as a holdback. Now, if things improve and we get on track for more than 27 million this year, then some of those funds can be reallocated. And then I mentioned the allocation of the 500,000 from cultural that gets pulled out as well, since that's not something the districts can spend on this anyway. And then we also have in 1444, we also have an emergency fund. If we did have some kind of storm event or other kind of event that would affect us and we needed to go out with a quick marketing program or campaign, we've had some money put aside for that. So that's little over 1.4 million. So I know it was really fast. Happy to answer any questions. And then Mr. Chair will need a no vote on that.
So can you speak just briefly on how do we earn interest? How's that happen? How's it?
So all of our funds are part of the county fund. So they're all amassed at the with the finance department, and that's managed up in Titusville. They hold all the funds. They put them into different instruments that are designated as very safe instruments. We have to be liquid because we're part of, all of these funds are really operational funds, so they have to stay in some kind of liquid instrument, usually T-bills, things like that. Usually the interests are a couple of percent, depending on what T-bills are floating at. So.
I was just looking at it, and I'm sorry.
I think maybe your mic's not on possibly there.
Is the 3 lights supposed to be on?
I think 3 are supposed to be on.
Testing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got you, yeah.
Yeah, no, I was talking to Chairman Feldner about it's hard to tell because I don't know what the average balance is, but the interest income on some of these balances is shockingly low. So you can invest across the board in government T-bill secured money market funds in excess of 4%. And there isn't a single interest income line on any of those funds that even come closest to
Yeah, and
1%.
This question came up last year, and actually Larry Jarnes asked that question, and I pursued it with the finance department. And not all of our funds can get invested all the time because they have to stay liquid, and there's a whole formulary to how they do it. Maybe at some point I'll have the person who actually is responsible for that come and speak to the committee, because it's come up a couple of times.
Is that Mark at the?
It is. It's Mark
okay.
Peterson, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a county, not just a TDC fund. We're a small
Yeah, we're a
fund
piece
compared
of
to-
the bigger county. We're just part of all of their aggregated funds, so
I'd
yeah.
hate to see the county not investing and getting an interest on these hundreds of millions of dollars we're sitting on.
I don't. You're not wrong to have that. To be thinking that. How about we'll see if we can have Mark come to the next meeting, and then he could address that for everybody. Is that?
So for my benefit, I wouldn't want to burn Mark's time. Again, ours is just a small piece in a $2 billion budget. As a county commissioner, I would want to see how they're getting even a money market return for all of the county's funds.
I do meet with them for better part of a couple of hours, and they do go through things line by line, but I'm not a finance person, and we could certainly have him come and explain if I don't think they'd be against that if we're interested next month, possibly.
I for the interest discussion, I don't know that it's thank you for the offer,
Okay.
but I don't know that he needs to come to this committee. I'd be interested to go to a commission meeting to see what kind of average rate of return they're getting on the cash funds at the county.
Let me talk to Mark and see what we can make available.
Maybe an email to us or something. To
Okay, that probably would be easy.
Yeah, and I think there was an email response that I provided last year as well, but yeah, it'd be good for him to update that for us.
See what the current situation is.
Money never sleeps. Gordon Gekko.
Now, was that the first movie or the second one? It had to have been the first. Yeah, the original. Mayor Connors.
Oh, I was just signifying that was the first.
Oh,
movie.
okay. All right.
But,
Sorry.
I
Okay.
did have something, since
Okay.
you called on me. Fund 1445, the Visitor Information Center.
Yes, sir.
As costs keep going up around the county, I think, 25 grand each chamber. It's kind of tough to run those visitor information centers. So I don't know if it'd be worth looking at, maybe bumping that up. Looks like we spent a little bit more last year than what we're projected as spending this year. So it'd be my recommendation that, we maybe gave each visitor or chamber visitor center 50,000 a grant instead of 25. Because some of the best marketing is local, especially as you guys we try to mass market to everybody across the county. That's kind of hard to do. So maybe that would be helpful, but that'd be a recommendation of mine.
Okay. Yeah, again, I don't believe this coming fiscal that would be possible, but certainly as we look at our budget growing, if that's an interest of the TDC, that we look at funding more for that grant program. It's been at 25,000 per chamber for as long as I've been here. So, as the budget grows, we certainly can take a look at that. If that's something the TDC would like, I'd defer to the committee to give us some direction on that, maybe for the next round of our marketing budget plan. Sorry, for maybe 27 as we look at that.
I'll comment, Peter, just in support of Mayor Connors. I mean, it's 72-mile-long county is very hard, and those visitor centers are a great way to directly connect with the tourists and give them information. So just as well as I think that the one on 520 is well situated and appointed,
Right.
they serve those areas that are not as central.
Yeah, yeah, and they do a great job. They do. It's just, a question of funding, really. But that's certainly something we can take a look at as we have additional dollars come into that account.
Do you have any other questions for Peter? Okay. Any discussion?
I'd just like to thank Peter for making that as interesting as possible. Thank you, Peter.
Short of tap dancing.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Okay. And we do need a vote on this, Peter?
Yes, sir.
That's right. Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll motion to approve the budget presented.
Okay. Have a motion by Julie. Is there a second?
Second.
I don't know why he's pointing at you. It's a second by Mayor Connors. We'll call the roll.
Julie Braga,
Aye.
Mayor Connors,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hermanson,
Yes.
Alex Littrell,
Yes.
Wayne Sword,
Yes.
John Moran,
Yes.
Chair Phillips.
Yes. And we'll show that adopted. Okay.
Okay, well, Julie, if you thought this was interesting, we're going to now step it up a little bit and get into the marketing plan. You have little notebooks in front of you. Laura's going to try to keep up with me as I'm going to go through this section by section as efficiently and quickly as I can. But please stop me if there's something that is of interest. I'm going to hit just high-level summaries. The marketing committee reviewed this. They approved it last week. This will go to the board on the 16th for approval. There's a lot of detail in here. For those that have been on the TDC for a while, it follows a similar format as past 2 years, but I think there's some new things that are of interest that I'll stop and talk a little bit about. The first section is budget, so you can kind of skip past that because we just did that. And if you wouldn't mind, then the next section starts on page 8 and 9. It's called the Day Tripper Study. We did last year, if you remember, there was a visitor study that we did, a full-blown overnight visitor study. That was part of the marketing plan last year. Since then, we decided, we got a lot of data on overnights, but we wanted to look at day trippers. And day trippers are often maligned. It's often thought they go to the beach and, they buy their drinks and food at Publix, and they don't spend a lot of money while they're here. We wanted to understand that, and if you look at slide 13, it shows that the typical day visitor spends $239 a day. The party spends $763 a day. So not insignificant amount of money, and when you think about what that mix of day trippers is compared to the overnights, it could be as high as 40% of people come for the day. So that's a significant amount of money. More importantly, we wanted to look at what's the potential with this market segment. And if you look on slide 15, at the top of slide 15, it says 3 out of 4 day visitors indicated they were likely or very likely to have an overnight stay on their next visit to the Space Coast. So converting those people to overnights, we were always wondering, well, how many of them just stay day trippers and that's all they do? Well, 3/4 of them told us that they were very likely to come and stay overnight. So I think keeping them in mind, it just helps inform us and just give us the sense that this is a market that we don't want to abandon. I will say over the last couple of years, we've probably reduced a little bit of our media spend in Orlando, thinking that most of Orlando are day visitors. I don't think we want to reduce it much more because I think it looks like it is an important segment from both in terms of what they spend, but also in terms of their future potential. A couple of other studies that are in here related to space. I'll point to page 17. Interesting, this was a piece of work that Ann Barr had done for us. They went out and just wanted to look at perceptions of space in general. Interestingly, Cape Canaveral ranks up there with Houston as the most associated with leading space exploration. And then as far as states, Florida, Texas, California, and DC are in there. So we're obviously in there when people are thinking about it. 61% felt that marketing is extremely effective at capturing consumer interest, and 62% said they would be more likely to buy brands that support space, and then ultimately 65% would be more likely to visit a destination that features space in its advertising. So I guess we're doing the right thing by having some elements of space in, not necessarily all of our marketing, but at least in some of our marketing as we go forward and look at different creative executions. So an important finding there. And then then we just did. I had been asked by the space industry, what impact in terms of visitor spending do rocket launches have? And so what we did was we went back and dug deep into the visitor study, the overnight visitor study we had done, and pulled out people that had said their primary reason for visiting was a launch. And just to see what those people look like. And if you look on page 21, it looks very good. Their average length of stay is almost 5 nights. They also spend about $231 a day, about $3,100 per party because they stay multiple days. So that's actually higher than the average overnight person, so that's a very significant number to say that they're coming here. They're not just coming for the launch. Those people that are staying overnight are really making a vacation out of it, and they're spending a lot of money. The next piece of research that we need to do is understand if they were coming for like what I would call a major launch, like a crewed launch or something related to a moon launch, something like that. What does that look like versus just an average everyday Falcon 9 going up and putting satellites up there? And we're going to do that piece of research in the fall, and that's going to help complete kind of our real look, a full 360 look at what people do when they come here for launches and how to maybe estimate what their impact could be from a visitor spending perspective. Keep rolling through on page 24, just a little bit about inventory and room night information. We grew this past year. It's the first time we've grown in a while. We're over 11,269 rooms now. That has obviously had some impact on TDT that we can tell. And then we've got future properties over the next couple of years continuing to open up. When we looked at room night demand, we were down a little bit last year compared to the year before in 23, but we are up in 24 compared to 23. Sorry, we were up in 22, and then we dropped a little bit in 23, and now in 24 we're up a little bit. So 4.4%, that's pretty good. If you look at the next slide, it compares us to our competitive set. We grew less than 1%, but if you look at what happened with the other destinations, we're right in that pocket with the others. The only one that was an anomaly, which I would ignore basically, is Daytona, because what happened was they had the year before, they had a lot of inventory taken out of the market because of storms. So a lot of their hotels were shut down. Those opened back up last year, so that's why they're up as much as they are, but that has no reflection on marketing or anything else. So. But other than that, it looks like we're hanging in there pretty well with other destinations. Vacation rental-wise, I mentioned that they would represent a third of our tax collections. Current inventory is over 9,000, 6,000 in Airbnb and 3,000 in VRBO. Obviously, we know there's a lot of overlap there, so we use the 6,000 as kind of probably the marker. We did see some flattening in their occupancy. The occupancy dropped a little bit, but their ADRs went up. So kind of almost net when you get to a RevPAR for them. But, obviously still an important segment for us from a tax collection perspective. Next, we're going to move into strategic considerations. Not a ton changed on a strategy side. I'll mention a couple of things, and then when we dig into some of the meat and potatoes of the plan, you'll see how it changes what we're executing. On the international market, we've seen a couple of markets reacting to let's just say changes in Washington, changes in our administration. We ran a Canada campaign earlier this year, saw a lot of negative comments on social media. When looking at the numbers from the state and from Orlando on Canada arrivals, those are down. Germany is down. However, UK and Ireland are still performing well. They're still hanging in there, and that's important for us because we get flights from TUI come in from the UK to Melbourne, and we work very closely with TUI on marketing. So that's a strategy point we're just going to keep an eye on as to where we're spending our dollars. But some other minor changes. We were hearing from the hotel community a lot more interest in meetings and conventions, and of course, as we know, in a couple of years we'll have a convention center. So that's an area that we want to put some strategic focus on. You'll hear about that in a little bit. Other than that, still fishing where the fish are in the domestic market is very important to us. And I'll show you a slide later that kind of talks about where we're putting our dollars, how we're allocating to different markets, and where there's opportunities should we get some additional funding, which, you never know, but where there's a lot of markets that we're not in that I think pose opportunities for us. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Going to creative, we've done a lot of new creative. We've done some new things with billboards, which you'll see here. You can start paging through those if you'd like, because all the creative is behind slide 31. So take a look at that. I'll talk a little bit about the creative execution. Cocoa Beach obviously has a heavy billboard campaign. It's something that they really wanted to do, and we work with them on that. But we also have boards for Melbourne, Titusville, and Palm Bay. Like I said, we did add a number of creatives for digital this year. And then we also have one new TV commercial for Cocoa Beach, and then we're actually filming starting next week, a commercial for the port. And then in the fall, our plan is to work with the folks in the Melbourne, Palm Bay area to do a new branding for that area, and part of that will be some new creative, new TV and digital for them. Another piece of new creative that we did on the digital front is on give you a slide number. Slide 59, we created some digital ads that were, I'm sorry, my numbers might be different for some reason. Laura, can you go down to the affordability digital? There you go. Okay, I guess it's slide 61 on the screen and 59 in your packet, or at least in my packet. Hopefully, we're on the same page. What's it on yours? 61? I'm just trying to make sure we're on the same page. Okay, sorry, it's slide 61. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, we did some affordability messaging this summer. They performed actually really well. We were, obviously going into the summer, we were a little concerned about where people were with the economy and things like that. I don't think it's ever a bad thing to have an affordability message, as long as you're not, sort of discounting the destination, but you're talking more about things like more for less, escape crowds, embrace savings, affordable getaways, things like that. I think that message resonated, and we saw a lot of click-throughs on these ads. So we're going to keep that as part of the mix as we go into the next fiscal year. And then I didn't put the actual spots, but this is just the storyboards. We'll bring the Cocoa Beach spot. We're still tweaking it a little bit more, but we'll bring that when it's finalized. And then you can see the port. We're going to be doing a spot for the port. And then you guys are pretty familiar with the countdown spot, which that's the award-winning spot that last year we won Best of Show at the Governor's Conference. So I'm going to the Governor's Conference tomorrow again. And I think people will still be talking to me about last year because we pretty much swept the awards last year. So if they don't remember, I will remind them. Okay, a little bit about who is our Space Coast visitor. So now I'm on 66. Not a lot changing in our demographics, but we do, again, I think it's important that we go after that more affluent household. I think we need a subsegment like that. Also, those people tend to be have fewer kids in the household, or maybe no kids in the household. So, just making sure that our targeting and our messaging kind of reflects that. And then if you look at page 67, this is the slide I was talking about earlier about our source market. So these are the top 20 out-of-state source markets, and then on the right side, the top 10 in-state source markets. And the yellow is where we plan and have funding to do marketing. Those red highlighted markets are all great markets to be in, and they're just basically sitting there ripe for us to go after. But obviously, funding is limited, so never complain about money. But I always say that if we had more money, here's what we would do with it. And clearly, I would go down that list and start hitting some of these other places like Boston, Detroit, Dallas, all great markets. In-state, Fort Myers, is a great market that we don't do a lot in. So I just think there's opportunity there. And if people ask about, is $13 million really enough? I always say, here's what we would do if we had more. And that's a lost opportunity right now, because we're in a very competitive business, and as you know, there's a lot of other beach destinations like Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach County, Sarasota, and St. Pete that all have way more money than us from a marketing perspective. So it's we're competing with all of those. Just a little bit now, digging into a little bit of the approach on our media. Streaming has taken over. We have become unplugged at my house. I've heard a lot of people saying they have it the same. We're just basically streaming all kinds of different things now. We're not really going straight up cable. But, we do, I think the cable companies were a little slow to the market on this, but I think they've caught up now. So we do work with Spectrum. We do work with Comcast. We will buy some cable, but we'll always make sure there's a heavier mix of streaming in those markets. So like in Tampa's a Spectrum market. Miami, Lauderdale is a Comcast market. We'll work with them on the cable side, but we also work with them on getting good placement with lots of streaming and digital ads that way. So that's just something we'll continue to do. Page 69 is our vacation planning, and it just shows, you not only need the paid media, but you also need your own media, anything that you own that we can control, like our Facebook, our website. And then earned media is a great opportunity for us. We get tens of millions of dollars in coverage and PR. I think I mentioned here we were the top 25 destinations in 2025 to visit by Condé Nast in the world. We were one of only 2 U.S. destinations. That came out of PR. So we got to keep doing that. We got to keep playing that game and trying to execute well with that. In fact, we're RFQing our PR agency this fall, so that'll be really important to take a look at that and see, if there's opportunity there. Okay, coming into the nitty-gritty of some of the budgetary stuff, and I'll try to wrap it quickly. The messaging calendar on page 71 just shows you how we lay out our programming, heavy focus on winter, and we shifted that fall-winter time period into January last year, and our January bumped. So we were pleased with that, so we're going to do that again this year. Then, of course, spring, is a big time. March, April, very important. Easter does fall in April this year, so that's good for us. And then of course, summer. The next page is just a detail of the media. You can see a bulk of that media, over close to $8 million being spent between the annual and the seasonal campaigns. So that's a big bulk of where our media gets spent. Performance metrics on page 74, just to note, we've been working with the Cocoa Beach Hotel Association on media buying. They've taken a sort of a top-of-funnel approach to their advertising, meaning they do a lot more awareness advertising than digital. So we've changed some of the metrics there where you see TV impressions and billboard impressions are higher, and that's why. So that was a slight change from prior years. And then keep on going. Then you see on page 76 our creative and production. Page 77 is social media and our website. By the way, our app is doing great. Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, are we over 250,000? I think we're close to 300,000 downloads now, something in that world. Yeah, so we want to get to 1 million. That's our long-term goal, is to get to 1 million downloads of our Space Coast Launches app. If you haven't downloaded it, please do. And then I wanted to point out, so this is something new on page 78, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is, sort of taking over the search engines. And if you notice what's happening in Google is when you do a Google search, that AI happens. Usually it'll happen either above or right below the ads. And so before you get even to the listings, you're getting sort of the answer. And so the new model is, instead of a search engine, they're becoming answer engines. And so what we need to do is make sure that our website and all of our content is readable and accessible by AI. And then ultimately, I believe, Brand USA just did this, but I believe probably in 27, we'll need to redo our website to make sure all the searches on the website are not just AI friendly, but actually AI powered. So that's probably going to cost some money to do that, but I think that's where we're going to have to go. Keep going through. Page 79 is PR. We've talked a little bit about that, so I'll keep going past that. Page 81, I wanted to mention, we do a lot in partnership with a lot of the local partners, certainly working with the port, developing a TV commercial for them. They've been on board with that. The airport, we work very closely with them. Next year, they're bringing a air service conference into town with about 20 airlines, and we're going to help work with them to do a familiarization tour with all of those airlines on our area, taking them to Kennedy Space Center and a few other places, just trying to sell them on the destination and the idea of partnering with us in the airport and bringing some more air service here. Direct air service helps us, and that's important to try to grow that. Also, we've been talking with Moon Pie, which is kind of a fun idea, Moon Pie on the Space Coast, working with them to do a big promotion in the pre-spring leading up to spring in the southern markets, using a lot of their access to their grocery partners, so, in Kroger and Winn-Dixie and Publix and all of those, having big Moon Pie displays, but having Space Coast as be part of that as that display. So that's something that we're looking at. So just some fun stuff. Sports we talked about, we have $240,000 that we use towards the incentive, but also we have our sports commissioner, Terry Parks, goes out and meets with a lot of these folks that are event organizers, goes to a lot of their industry shows, and is going to continue to try to bang that drum. So that he does a great job, and we're trying to grow that. International, I mentioned, we probably pull back a little bit in the international on consumer advertising, but we want to keep our rep in Europe. That's important because that person has relationships with all of the tour operators, all of the big travel agencies. We do a lot of training over there. We participate in shows that Visit USA and Visit Florida do over there. So we don't want to back out completely, but we're probably going to spend a little less in that market, but make sure we have our finger on the pulse there and just keep an eye on things as.
Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just I hate to interrupt you when you're on a roll there.
That's all right.
But I just, and this might seem like a silly thing, but in talking about the sports, we're going to have the Top Golf facility here in Vieira soon. And is there a tourism component to that? I mean, do people, do they do events that?
They do, yeah.
Competition with high schools or any of that?
I don't.
I'm not a golfer, so
I'm not. I mean, maybe somebody who is golf is maybe more familiar with it. I know in Orlando they have a Top Golf there, and a lot of the convention people love it, and they'll do events there after, in the evenings after the convention is over. They'll bring their team over and they'll do different programming there. I don't know about competitions. That I'm going to have to research a little bit more and get back with you on. I don't know if there's a way to do, long ball or competition using the virtual reality component that they have, but that would be interesting to kind of look at.
I know we've had some youth golf tournament
Yes,
situations.
we do,
and,
right.
We have a big high school right here, and so I was just curious, really.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. And I think the one thing to say about it is the more we have like that gives people fun things to do while they're here, that improves the length of stay, which that's an ultimate goal for us as well. So, if they know that, hey, one day, one of my vacation days, we can go and do something at Top Golf, because it's there, that's a good thing, I think. But yeah, we'll look into the competition thing. I'm not sure about that piece. So we'll check into that. Just a couple other things here, and we'll wrap up. Travel industry, it's interesting. Cruises, the cruise lines have not stopped ever providing commissions to travel agents. And so a lot of other entities like hotels have really kind of cut back on that. But the cruise lines still, they still fund that element to the travel agents, and we're seeing a real uptick in interest from the big travel agencies wanting to come here, do familiarization tours on ships, but then ultimately do those tours while they're here at the destination. And so we try to support that. We haven't increased the budget at all, but we're being asked to do more and more FAMs, which I think is great. And then on the next slide, as I mentioned, meetings and conventions. We partnered last year with an organization called CVent. CVent is an online way for meeting planners to issue RFPs to different destinations that they might have an interest in meeting in. We've already had several conventions select us through CVent as their as a winner for their convention. So it's about a $10,000, $11,000 investment, and it's already paid for itself in terms of the ROI that we'll get from bringing those conventions here, and that I think that's just going to grow over the next several years, especially as we open up the new convention center. VIC, we talked quite a bit about, so I'm not going to say much more about that. Research on page 88 is very important. You know, all of our data that we get from STR to doing proprietary research, like some of the research that's in here, all the research that we do for the MSP program to look at the size of audiences coming from outside the area and our source markets coming from outside the area, all came from Datafy, which is our cellular device tracking tool. So all of that's really important. So we obviously want to keep funding that. And then on page 89 is a wrap-up of just some remaining expenses. By the way, travel did not increase. We've kept our travel flat for this is our third year in a row at that number, so we haven't really grown that. Try to be cognizant of the travel budget at all times. But then you see how that ties to the bottom line of the 14.1 million, which I talked about earlier. That's describes that. So that, Mr. Chair and members, is around the marketing plan and as quick as I could do it.
Questions for Peter? Okay.
By the way, sir, I will not do this at the board meeting. So you don't have to hear it 3 times, unless you want me to.
Unless other commissioners want you to. Okay, so we need, is there any discussion? Anybody in discussion? No? Is there, we need a motion, right, Peter?
The
On this?
motion, actually, I'll leave it to Tom. It came from the committee.
Okay.
So.
We reviewed all this at the committee and had additional discussions, but you all heard the plan. I think it's a good one. I will add that we just went through a selection process at the county level for a new advertising agency, and the incumbents won out of a large group of applicants that came from other states, many different states. So we're going to, that's going to be a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, or is that a TDC collection decision to stick with the marketing plan?
Actually, once the RFQ's done, that was the recommendation.
So they went through the RFQ process, and, you know, this artwork is kind of reflective of older stuff that hopefully will soon be changed out, more unified to reach new heights. So I think Peter and the staff and his team are doing a great job, and we look forward to getting better working with the agency for another several years.
Is that your motion?
And I make a motion to approve the marketing plan as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Tom Hermanson. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second by John. We'll call the roll.
Julie Broderick,
Aye.
Mayor Connors,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hermanson,
Yes.
Alex Litchfield,
Yes.
Wayne Sword,
Yes.
John Moran,
Yes.
Chair Felker.
Yes. And we'll show that approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have any public comment? I don't think we have any cards or anything, right?
No, sir.
No? Okay. We'll go into board reports. Julie, board report.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm in the throes of renovation, so I apologize for my tardiness and not thinking as quickly, but I had 2 things I wanted to mention. As the beach chair, our beach improvement committee meeting is going to be October 21st, which is going to be a wrap-up meeting, and I believe Mike's going to give us a report. That's what I heard on the street. No, in October 21st, October 21st. Just make sure you're awake.
You came early.
I am going to call on Mike in a second, though,
Oh.
but go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So then the additional thing I wanted to just bring up is for support of the BCA, I want to thank everyone and hope that the Board of County Commissioners really takes into consideration that arts are a huge value for tourism, and that we Or spend so much money and time getting the tourists here, but just like Peter mentioned, giving them things to do. Topgolf is also very interesting, but having activities and things for them to engage in not only keeps them here longer, but also brings them back again. So thank you very much for what you guys do. And that is all I had.
That's quite an endorsement there, Catherine. Good. Okay. Mayor Connors.
I just want to say thank you to the TDC staff for doing a great job, and, I'm excited for what we're going to do. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Hermanson.
Nope, nothing, thank you.
Okay, Larry's not here. Alex.
Nothing to report, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Medina didn't make it. John, you have anything in board report
No.
today? Okay. Wayne?
Nothing to report.
Sir? Okay. I'll have something, I think, after Peter, okay? So.
Okay. If I just wanted to ask Mike to come up real quick, because I know there was a lot of interest in the very offshore storm last week, but, everybody saw the waves, and I know there were a lot of surfers in town for that, but I wanted to ask Mike to just make a quick comment on what his takeaway was on impact on the beaches, if any.
And I've only had the opportunity, I did a quick look at beaches, but because the storm was so offshore, the big, long, smooth, rolling swells that surfers love are not quite as hard on the beaches as a short, choppy, wind-blown waves. So while the swells rolled up the beaches, they didn't, and they shifted sand around a little bit, but they weren't abusively erosive to the beaches. In the south beaches, they kissed the dune in a few spots, but because of the distance offshore, we fared well.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. And then just a note, you see our next meeting will be back in the Florida room, thank goodness, on September 24th.
Okay, and so we also have October 22nd, November 12th as our future meetings, and then Marketing Committee is going to be on September 25th, right? That's what it says, okay.
Yep, sounds good.
Today, earlier today, and he's here, so I'll embarrass him one more time. Dave Berman's here from the paper, and he's retiring soon. So the county management presented him with a plaque this morning, recognizing him in his service. And sir, how many years total with Gannett? 26 years. Yeah, 99, right? You started with them. And so he's leaving in the next couple of weeks. And so you see him here at the TDC meetings. I'd asked him, I said, what's exciting about the TDC meeting? Just kidding with him a little bit in the hall. But he's always been fair to us, and we appreciate it. So thank you. Everyone, and yes, absolutely. Sir. Okay, I don't think that we have anything else. Thank you very much, everyone. What, sir? Oh, okay, yep.
So I sit on the Florida Restaurant Lodging Association board, and Julie brought it up last month. You have 3 days to make recommendations for people in the restaurant lodging industry for the Rose Award. And it's a great opportunity for those people in that position of being in the hotel or restaurant to recognize people, whether they win or not, that they get recognized by you to be nominated for the Rose Award. So you have 3 days to get your nominations in, and if you want it, I can certainly send you the link so that you can make some nominations of the staff that you have working for you. Thank you, sir.
Now, has anyone here ever won the Rose Award?
We had a staff member. Yeah, we had one of our staff members won it last year or 2 years ago. Yeah.
Probably 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And one of my associates won.
Okay.
Leah's got 2.
Oh.
We're a little confused.
Okay. I guess it wasn't around when we were,
It was called
yeah.
the Hospitality Specialist of the Year Awards, which was hosted by the TDC.
Okay.
So that was the way, and then the FRLA picked it up when we could no longer do that. And with great appreciation from our industry that we still get to recognize our frontline personnel.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Okay, thank you for that. All right, everyone, thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.